Hi Miranda, how are you doing today?
Hi Jamie, it's really good to be with you. I'm really excited about talking about Dreamland and being their fortune teller.
Well, fantastic. I've been really looking forward to this interview. So we've come to Dreamland today to have a meeting with you so you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing here. Before we start, for people who don't actually know you, could you tell us a little bit about your journey that you've had to becoming a fortune teller and the story behind why you got into this profession?
Naturally, Jamie, I'd love to talk to you about it. I am a Dunn, and if you look at my fortune telling board, you'll see that I've had that board for about 40 years. But I'm also a McAlevey, so I'm descended from Cormac and Cromac McAlevey, magicians to the kings of Ulster. And my family have been fortune tellers for many generations. They've also dealt in magic, and many McAleveys have been doctors. For example, my great-great-grandfather, Joseph McAlevey, was a doctor in Napoleon's army and was on campaign with Napoleon throughout Europe. But also I have deep roots in Kent, because not only have the McAleveys been backwards and forwards. I think when we first met, Jamie, we met when you were going to Conflans St Honorine.
Yes.
And my family, the McAleveys, have deep connections with not Conflans St Honorine, but actually Saint-Germain-en-Laye, which is the river, the French town on the other side of the village of the River Seine. And it was there that McAleveys have been educated for generations since they supported Seamus Akaka, James II of England, or James the Shithead as the Irish call him.
Right.
And the McAleveys have been soldiers of fortune for many generations, as well as obviously reading fortunes. And so my grandmother was educated at Saint-Germain-en-Laye, and I learnt how to read fortunes from my grandmother Cherry, who, as I told you, was educated in a convent at Saint-Germain-en-Laye because of that family connection. But also Madeleine McAlevey was in that area when she escaped from the Russian Revolution, and I have a sort of lovely tortoiseshell comb, which was sent to Cherry by Madeleine when she was a makeup artist. But that particular tortoiseshell comb actually came from a McAlevey aunt who was a nun in Spain. So the connection between being a fortune-telling Irish family that have read fortunes across Europe, but also survived things like the Russian Revolution. When Madeleine was in Russia, or Moscow, during the time of the Russian Revolution, she escaped. And one of the things which enabled her to escape was the sort of family knowledge that she'd learnt at her father's lap in Ireland. That's the type of tenacity which allowed them to live through the Irish potato famine and stay alive, and again escape during some pretty nasty stuff.
Wow, that's incredible. So your family's played quite an important part in history by the sounds of it.
Well, they've survived through being in the moment and knowing when to keep quiet. Madeleine's Russian lover was executed on the train as she escaped because he used the wrong word on the train, and so he was taken out and shot. And Madeleine kept her cool, kept quiet, and when the time came for her to pass her papers, she passed her papers and she said, "Comrade." So that is the type of knowledge that we have about being in the moment, being true to yourself, and even when death is looking at you in the face, keeping your cool. Because it's moments like that when you keep your cool, when you live. And she got back to Paris with bare feet. She had to sell her boots on the way, but she survived. If she could have saved her lover, she would have, but there was nothing she could do at that moment. So living is sometimes the most important point. And I try to when I see my customers and they come to see me, I try to tell them that they have to be in the moment. They have to be true to themselves in the moment, but they also need to keep their wits about you, because life is a wild tiger, and you either lie down and let the tiger put the paw on your head, or you ride the tiger. And my job as a fortune teller is to teach my clients how to ride the tiger.
Fantastic. Well, when your clients come in to see you, are you able to read their energies straight away, and how does that process actually work?
Well, the most important thing I can do is listen and look and see what they need and listen to them, because they're coming to me. I don't know what they need to get from me. And things like what we call chakras are very subtle energies. So I don't look at you, Jamie, and I don't sort of see your chakras like sort of bright rainbow lights in your body. What I feel is your energy of where you are. And everybody does this. Everybody feels the energies. But coming from a fortune telling family, I'm aware of what we call the pentagram, or if you see in pictures by Leonardo da Vinci of a man number 5, the pentagram or the star or the 5 points is a person who is true to themselves and who is aware. And we say, if you are in the pentagram, if you are, in other words, if you are awake intellectually, you're listening, you're using your brain, you're using your heart, you're using your instinctive centre, you're using your moving centre, and you're using what we call the sex centre. So that's the 5 major centres. And if somebody is balanced, and that's my job as a fortune teller as well, to try to help people to be balanced, to use all their centres. Because I might have somebody who comes to see me who is a bit frozen. Maybe they have suffered a broken heart and their sex centre is frozen and has gone to sleep. So my job in that case would not be to wake that up straight away, but to give them the choice and to read for them. But spirit is what reads for my clients, and I do it through many different ways. I might do it through my crystal ball. I might get my client to look in the crystal ball. The crystal ball is one of the oldest ways of reading fortunes that we have, and I use it. Idris Shah, the Sufi, his sister would read water, and you can read water, or you can read a fire, or you can read a crystal ball. But the most important thing that you do is you're in the moment, because once my client is in the moment and they're in my little, wherever I'm reading the fortune, they are connecting hopefully to the whole of their lives. They're connecting to their essence, and I try to wake them up so that they are aware that they are alive today, that we're all human. Once we recognise that we're human, once we recognise that this body, which is connected to our soul, is important and valuable and precious, once we realise how fragile it is. I mean, I see humans going about life every day, you know, whizzing about. You see young teenagers whizzing about on the bikes. They feel immortal. And yes, part of us is immortal, but part of us is like a cobweb against sort of the measure of time. And that part of us that is fragile, we need to look after that too, and we need to be aware of our bodies. As a fortune teller, we need to be aware of our fragility as humans and what's important. And when someone comes to a fortune teller, it makes them think about their lives. It makes them think, are they using their heart? Are they using their instinctive centre? Are they alive to all the possibilities? Are they alive to their potential? And that's that opportunity that I have. And the other lovely thing is that sometimes someone can walk in and they can be asleep. They may be walking through their life, just listening to what other people say, just doing what their wife wants them to do, or doing what their husband wants to do, or just living for their children. And I get an opportunity to say, hey, what about you? How do you feel about this? And what is important to you?
It's great. Well, so obviously, I can tell that you love what you do, and it's very rewarding. What would you say the highlights of what you do are?
The highlights of reading fortunes. It can be very quiet moments when I get a young couple who are in love and they come for a reading, and the spirit comes through and tells them that they will have a baby, or to have faith, or that it will be all right. Moments when people can have faith in themselves, and you know they had that faith, but you allow them to actually see that. When I see old couples coming, and maybe I'll have an old lady and her husband will come through, and it's very gentle, it's very, very tenuous sometimes when spirit comes through, but when it comes through it's so true. So it's not a blinding thing, it'll just be that little comment that will come through from spirit that will help somebody when they've been going through a tough time.
It's fantastic. You've shown us and spoken a little bit about the crystal ball. You've got some of the other tools of your
Yes.
trade, I think is fair to say. Would
Yes.
that be fair to say?
Yes.
How, for example, do the tarot cards help you to do a reading?
Well, this is my latest set of tarot cards that I'm very excited about. This is a fabulous set of cards called the Tarot of the Vampires, and the tarot is a book of 78 cards which come to us through history. But always, when we work with them, and I use many different sets, but the sets have certain archetypal figures in them, archetypal figures across history. We might have something like the Empress, and the Empress symbolises a pregnant woman, but she also connects with the goddess Juno. And I might, in this pack for instance, I've got all of the different cards, but they are a book. They're a book, and the tarot is related to the 22 paths of the Kabbalah, or the Tree of Life. If you study the Kabbalah, as obviously fortune tellers do, then you study the Tree of Life. And there are 22 pathways which work with the chakras, but also work on the individual's path to enlightenment. So the tarot cards it's 78 cards, and they tell a story, and I use each of the cards to relate to my client, and they will tell a different story in so many different ways, because they're not set, and every single fortune teller links to her cards or his cards, but also links to spirit. I have this pack of runes, and these runes are runes which were left to me by my great uncle, who was a Sauter, as well as a Makalevi, and these belong to Esmond Sauter, and Esmond Sauter lived to 98. Like me, he was a fortune teller, but he also, his most important path was actually teaching people how to meditate, and he would teach people to meditate using a particular stone, and also teach people how to breathe and how to awaken their chakras. But the runes are very ancient. They are, if you look at, you might have heard of a book by Robert Graves, the great First World War poet, called, which book am I referring to? The Book of Trees, or The White Goddess. And the White Goddess tells you how in your life objects which help you to follow the next part of your story will materialise. If you're filming, for example, another piece of a jigsaw puzzle may suddenly come to you in as you're walking down the street. You might sort of look at a book in a shop window, and you'll see something which gives you another clue. And Robert Graves writes about this. But the runes are a book of enlightenment, and so are the tarot. So there are 78 major cards in the tarot, and then there are all the different words or letters of the runic alphabet. And I've just drawn 3 runes, and I've drawn Hagalaz, which makes me think that it might be about to rain fairly soon, but let's... And I've drawn Manaz, and Manaz is the rune which is about the self. So this is about reminding me about the self. And Manaz is a reflection of Wonju, and that's, if you see Wonju is like a P, either way.
Yeah.
And Wonju is the rune for joy or a fruiting branch. And the other one we have here is Bakana, or the one for new growth. The runes are a tree alphabet. They were based on trees and the names of the trees, because obviously the original. If you think about the stones, because obviously we're connected to all the sacred stones and the lines of ley across Britain, and this is an important part of Britain because we are in Thanet or Tanit, the island of Tanit, the ancient Phoenician goddess, and also Tanit or Thanet is the Isle of the Dead, the traditional place where people came to be buried, but also to take part in sacred ceremonies like the one at the Shell Grotto. But this tree alphabet links in to sort of language and understanding and archetypes, and also a very sort of ancient part of our history in Thanet and our connection to nature. This is harvest with Jira, and it's quite, again, there's no, as a fortune teller, I see the symbolism of my drawing Jira at this time because this is autumn and it's the time of harvest, and Jira is always symbolic of a year and a harvest. But what I would say to you is, we know you're about to have another baby, and it's very positive. It's very positive.
Well, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, it's an exciting time for me. Yeah, as you know, you're currently based in Dreamland. I know Dreamland's had a fantastic year. I think it's great what they've done here. I've absolutely loved it when I've come here. How do you see the fortunes of Dreamland going into the future?
Well, Dreamland is such an opportunity for everybody, because Dreamland is about the sort of essence of Margate, and Dreamland has a connection to the wild, and it has a connection to our history. A couple of weeks ago, David Sanger, who opened Dreamland last year and who has his fabulous horses, came here with his baby cave and Amanda, his wonderful partner, and they may be performing next year, hopefully, with David's amazing horses.
Oh,
but also, what's going on here is just full of adventure and excitement. There's so many young people working within Dreamland, and so much creativity going on. Creativity with cooking, creativity with the fun fair, with the pleasure park, with all of the rides and with all of the things which are going on here, but also that sort of vision for a future which includes everybody in Thanet, but also is an opportunity for everyone from about the world really to come here and have fun and enjoy a place where you're connected to history. You're also connected to the earth, because this is a magical, natural place. So when you go on the scenic railway, you're amongst a place where the earth and the connection to the wildlife is there. For example, earlier this year there were butterflies all over the scenic railway, because that it's got lovely wild grass and flowers which have not been disturbed and have been looked after. And if you look here, you'll see that in the beginning of the pleasure park there are lovely ancient olive trees which are being looked after and planted here, and it's working with nature and with people, but also with the young people. So there's music for all generations, there are activities going on, and yesterday we had a lovely group of people who were staying at the Walpole Bay Hotel, and they were wearing lovely 1940s clothes, and they'd come here for a nostalgia weekend. But the weekend before, we had fabulous bands and music from the sort of the pinnacle of the music world at the moment, all performing here. And just back there, that is where the Beatles performed when they came to Margate. And so we have so much going on in the old town of Margate, and so many plans for working with nature and working with exciting new projects.
Yeah, it's extremely positive what's going on here. If people have not come to Margate yet, definitely come. It's incredible what's been happening, the amount of effort that people are putting into it. It's amazing. Well, because of the last reading that we had regarding the weather, we want to make sure we're going to beat that weather, Miranda. So I've got one more question to ask you, and it's it really for us as a globe, I suppose, for us as a world. What do you feel that the future could hold, and how could people help to shape that future into a more positive one? It's a big question. I know it's a big question. But
thank you. I'm so glad you asked that, because obviously in my past, as well as reading fortunes, I've been a member of Greenpeace Active and campaigned against nuclear power. I took part in the occupation of Sizewell B, and I've campaigned for peace on many occasions. To me, what people can do is they can just take it like the French philosopher said, you must cultivate your own garden. I believe that the most sustainable future that we all have is through using new alternative technology ourselves, using solar panels whenever we can, using wind power whenever we can, building our own homes, self-build, taking responsibility for cleaning our own backyard. I don't believe that it's important whether you own your own house or whether you own your own land. I believe that you need to nurture that land and you need to cultivate it. So just making sure that you use environmental paint in your house if you can, or use something recycled, or mend something, or make sure that the food you eat has come, if you must eat meat, try to make it an animal that hasn't suffered, that's had a full life. And if you can, try to eat organic food. But there are lots of people who don't have that choice, and we have an opportunity to try to help them and to try to make a difference. So if you can give something to charity for somebody who has less than you, that makes a huge difference, because it's acts of small kindness, And remember, you can't take anything physical out of this world. The only thing you take out of this world is the love and the relationships that you have built. So to me, J.K. Rowling, who's given her personal wealth away for charity, is a great example, because all of us need to remember to give an act of kindness to a small child or to an old person who is frail and vulnerable. That is the greatest gift that we can give.
Wow, powerful stuff, Miranda, powerful stuff. Well, I think on that note, thank you, Miranda Dunn, the fortune teller of Dreamland, for speaking to us today, and I'm sure we will be able to have another interview perhaps with you in a year's time and see where we stand then.
Well, I'd be very lucky if I'm lucky enough to be interviewed for you then. Are you then? Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thanks ever so
Wishing
much,
you and your
Miranda.
production company a lot of luck, and thank you so much.
God bless you. Thank you.